Welcome to this week's installment of Reading with Robin, your number one destination since 2002 for insightful author interviews and discussions on everything literary. And with no further introduction, your host, Robin Call.
My guest today is Liza Palmer, who is the internationally best-selling author of Conversations with the Fat Girl and several other novels. As an Emmy-nominated writer, she lives in Los Angeles. She works for BuzzFeed, which we love, and like her heroine, Joan, she never went to college. The Nobodies is brand new. It's just out. It's fabulous. It's hilarious, thoughtful, charming, my kind of book. And I'm thrilled to have her on the show. Welcome to Reading with Robin, Liza.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Such a treat. When Amelia sent me this book, Amelia and I have worked together on many books. She really knows what I like, and she was so excited to send this to me a long time ago. Yeah, I feel like I've known about this book for a long time, and it's
well, the summer lasts, 10 months, so maybe it was
right?
the beginning of summer.
That's what it feels like, and it's so. You have the luxury of being out in the gorgeous weatherland, and
yes.
So here, and there's something about the seasons changing that's invigorating and re-energizing, and then it slowly slopes to depressing.
Right.
But right now, at this time of the year, when everything's just starting, it's there are these expectations that like the doom and gloom of in 3 months isn't really going to come.
Right.
So that's like the New England way of sort of burying your head in the sand.
Right.
But it does feel like a really long time when it begins.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I mentioned July, and I was like, oh, God, how long ago was that?
Right. What did we do in July? What was July?
40 years. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It is very crazy, the whole sense of what time means, and when you are really taking a look at, how much, so I look at my puppy, and I'm like, he's going to be 2. And I'm like, how is he going to be 2? That's been 2 years? Like, how is that, depending on how you sort of measure snippets of time, right?
No, and I think once you get like my nieces have been incredibly inconvenient in that regard because they're now like human beings and you really can't ignore somebody going off to college.
No. Is that where they're at? That's what they're up? Yeah,
they're older. When they went to college, they were, one's in graduate school and one is just graduated. So it's like, what? How can I still say that I'm, a certain age? When,
when your nieces are. Well, that is true.
They're viable humans. Yeah.
We're going to have the viability conversation now. I'm on the phone with Liza Palmer.
In the morning. No.
And we're chatting about the Nobodies and viability. This book is incredibly viable. I think that's the thing about those markers of and certainly if you're not on Facebook, right? Did I?
I got off Facebook. Yeah.
Smart woman.
Social media and me. Especially being at BuzzFeed, which is kind of the epicenter of all social media.
Yes.
I think it's just
it's just redundant and too much and like life crushing. So
I think it's like, I think as you get older, right, you have to kind of you understand that the true commodity is time and energy.
Yes.
And so
Liza.
And also we've talked about like how when you kind of realize that you're a morning person or you're not, you start to know yourself, right? And so it's like knowing I can't
look away.
Myself. Exactly. I know I can't police myself. So I need to kind of take that option away from myself and get off of Facebook so that my time and energy can be used in other places.
It's so smart. The wisdom that comes is just dazzling because I noticed you're on Instagram, Twitter. Don't look for Liza on Facebook. But for me, and I really would love to pull away from it, but then I'm like, okay, and visit Reading with Robin on Facebook. That's where we'll be giving away copies of Liza's The Nobodies. A lot of people are on Facebook. We are on
100%.
Yeah, we are on Instagram, but when all it is right now is everybody's back to school pictures, the dorm pictures, the wedding pictures, the baby pictures. So it's exhausting. It's just exhausting, but when it's your own family, that is how you go like, wait, how is the youngest in our family, the youngest nephew is a senior in high school. So, all of them have gone through or in the middle. Like, how is the baby going to, is doing the college visit. So I know it is, if you want to do the math, it's impossible to keep yourself at a certain age.
Right.
Right? It's just, impossible. So, and this is really goes to the heart of this book, and talk about Liza and where the nugget. It's always like, what was the first spark of this is what I want to write about?
Well,
like, how did it come to be?
I think you've spoken to a lot of writers. I think the book knows about what's about before you do. And I think that sounds very magical and ethereal and all that kind of stuff, but it's actually quite true. I think it comes from a deep place. I thought it was going to be, after in 2014, I pitched book 7 to my then publisher, and they were like, yeah, no thanks.
Isn't it? And also, just to stop you there for a second, because a lot of writers are listening to the show, and there's a sense that, like, once you've written a certain amount, it's just there it goes. So, you pitch this, and you figure...
I worked on a panel, and my one of my dear friends, Sarah Kuhn, who writes the Heroine Trilogy, which is an incredible series of books, said one of the major myths of publishing is that you only break in once. And I think if that's one thing
a great one.
that I can kind of, any advice that I can give, it's like you've got to keep breaking in. And I think it's actually a good thing because that makes you kind of endlessly curious about your creative process. It makes you kind of authentic and real and kind of checking in with yourself kind of all the time. So it makes you kind of put everything back on the table and kind of look at things for how you do it. I mean, incredibly inconveniently, and not like you don't feel great about yourself. Like a very
exactly. It's like they're going to love this. They're going to, I'm just going to send this off, and they're going to sign on the dotted line, right?
No, you're not gazing into the middle distance in some kind of Irish seaside. It's like you're usually had what happened to me, which is you have to get a day job because after a long time, like I finally in 2015. I got a day job at BuzzFeed as the world's oldest BuzzFeeder. And it's like, one of these things is not like the other. But what happened and once again, none of this understanding was happening as it was happening. I don't think that, I think that's what people think is.
Never does.
That's also the myth, right? It's like it's only in retrospect that you're like, oh, I think I was going through something. I was listening to Rising Strong for a year on my commute to work.
It would be so much more convenient to know you're going through something while you're going through something.
No, you don't.
Right.
You think you're one email away. You think it's a phase. You'll read in your journal, I was feeling flat, and you don't really know. No, you're going through a major depression. But so I got a job at BuzzFeed. And then what started happening was I was incredibly bad at my job because as you get older, what you realize is that you like being good at stuff, and you like being good at stuff in the way in which you're good at it. So you rarely are putting yourself in situations where you're trying something new, and you're certainly not trying something new as far as a job or something where you're being evaluated on a very public, steep learning curve. So I was bad at it, and I for the first 6 months, I was basically, and had just a giant ego, right? So it's like, oh, you're welcome. And they're like, for what? And they were all incredibly lovely and welcoming. And so after 6 months of essentially kind of being bad at my job, and, being earnest and polite and all that kind of, I'm not like an animal, but
no, you're definitely earnest and polite. I love that. Those are good qualities, earnest and polite. Those are great ones.
Finally, this wonderful 24-year-old kid became my manager, and was like, all of it was just, and she was like, let's start you from the bottom rung. And basically deconstructed the process, the creative process here. But in so doing, defibrillated my entire creative process because I had to look at doing something I was good at in a way in which I was bad at it. And I think that's
fascinating. Wow.
It is, and it's incredibly. You're being taken apart, kind of piece by piece, and everything about your life and your identity, like who you thought you were, is in ashes. But after a year, so we pitched the Nobodies. I think probably we pitched it maybe a year and a half into working at BuzzFeed, and at that point, it was really about kind of this like cloak and dagger, and in the beginning there was like a dead body, and it was this whole thing where. Basically, it was all smoke and mirrors, so I wasn't going to talk about what a failure I felt like.
What you don't want to write without getting to that part. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. How much can I throw at the wall before I don't talk about, feeling like a failure? And then I wrote this one scene where she talks about her dad adopting a stray dog named Alan.
I was reading that. With the backpack.
With the backpack, and essentially
I was crying actually reading that.
Right.
It was,
And essentially, that scene broke open what the story was about. And it was like, I wrote that scene, I was like, oh, no.
It was beautiful.
It was the idea that we all are just dogs that need backpacks, and backpacks is kind of like meaning and purpose. And without a backpack, you feel unmoored. So... Yeah. And that's when I started, was like, oh, God. And that's when you're like, you've waited it. It's too, you burned your boats, and this is and now you have to write all your feelings. But of course, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in that way.
That was amazing. That was a real page stopper. Like, I read that a couple of times and really thought about it. And also, I'm a dog person. I'm speaking with Liza Palmer. We're talking about the Nobodies visitor site at LizaPalmer.com, and find her on Twitter and Instagram, and do not look for her on Facebook. So, and then you talked about the internal backpack and what that kind of means. And there is nothing like avoiding that which you need to get to eventually. But it is a process, because you always think like, well, in your head you kind of really maybe know, and then it's like, how do you get to that part? But there is no way around that but through. So, and as a writer...
I think it's even deeper. I think your body knows before you do. It's stuff where you can't sleep, you can't catch your breath, your stomach feels off. I think that those were the first signs for me. I think it was your body knows before your head does, because your head can basically kind of tell any story that it wants. It's
right. That's true. That's true.
And then the heart kind of knows something is wrong. But then once the head knows, then that's when kind of the boats are turned. But at least that's how it was for me, So
you could show up for, like, just a basic tune-up at the doctor, and they go, you have a story stuck in here, lady.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the problem.
With you. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would just bill that to the Blue Cross and just write it off as a business expense. So when you started at BuzzFeed and as a writer, like, how do they react to that? Like, they should just, like, bow down and revere. Like, how does you're in that book world in a different space. So
and they're so lovely. I think it's like they were so lovely, and they were ready to. And at that point, BuzzFeed was trying to kind of crack a certain level of scripted, and of course, scripted doesn't really exist anymore on BuzzFeed. So. I think it's the tech way, it's the startup way, right? You start a job, and then 3 months later you're in a new job, and you have no idea how you got there. So I think it's now mostly I'm working in and it's great, because I think it's like, it's all about the 3-act structure. It's about development. It's about how do we kind of tell this story? And it's made me, the part that I didn't really know that wasn't the strongest, which is craft, structure, and, basically kind of getting your 10,000 hours in. That's what I've gotten in there. And I think that's what people don't realize, is that there are other places to learn other aspects of your craft. You can learn. And I remember when I went to, as you do, like I took pottery, and I was like, this is going to be nice and fun. And pottery is extremely hard, by the way. Yeah. And I was like, why is this so hard? And really it was like, if you can't put the clay, if you can't, when you're not centered, you can't center the clay. And I was like, how dare you?
I think that is such a great way to explain that. And I think that's the other thing of sort of letting go of different parts of your brain where you're focused on something else, and where you can take that along. So, wow. So how did your first pieces come out?
Of the book? I think from the
No, I meant your pottery. Now I'm on your now I'm picturing
I have
you with
a lot
the wheel.
of I know. I have a lot of wobbly bowls. So that I'm like, this is art, and I still eat out of them.
It is if you say it is, yes.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of really deep, like they're just really not well-built bowls. And the soap holders that don't stay on the side of the rim of the sink. Yeah, there's a lot of those.
But it's like the fun, like enjoying that process. It's messy, totally. Right? And you have to learn. I think that just anytime you sort of step out of your way and learn something new, or just be open to it, it's like so many other things they just flood in, and you don't even have to realize how it
exactly.
Where it fits together just will, maybe.
Exactly, because I think it reboots that system in your about like letting yourself learn. It makes you curious. It turns you on to kind of other things. It switches lights on in rooms that haven't really been inhabited in your brain. And it also makes you braver to, if you can go take a pottery class, then maybe you can start writing that novel. Because I think we have this really high threshold of perfection that we feel like we need to do before we start something or earn the right to almost start it. It's really a weird threshold that we've given ourselves, which it's the same thing, which is like, no, my hair has to look before I go to the salon, or no, I have to be thin before I go to the gym. It's like it's all these things.
All
where
of
it's
those
like,
things. Yeah.
You have to. And so I think when you monumentally fail, like I did, and continued to fail, it was years that I failed at BuzzFeed and had to learn in a very public, steep learning curve how much I was behind. There was something about that made me fearless, or at least understand. There's a great quote by Liza, which I'm going to get wrong, and which is like, even though there's rough waters, I know how to captain my ship. I think that's what happens, is that you start to trust yourself as, it doesn't matter if it's new, I understand that I can at least follow the steps and kind of make it to the end of something, that I can do this, which I think is something that you have to relearn about yourself.
And that's the thing, like constantly relearning. And, at the beginning, talking about Facebook and not spending that time there and realizing as you get older how, vastly everyone always says it, you can't get your time back and time's so important, but like really owning that, and like everything becomes measured in, is this worth my time, or where do I want to spend my time? And so if you want to learn something or immerse yourself in something, that freedom to be able, it doesn't have to be perfect, or we all are learning new things. And the way we learn has changed so much. So what you can learn from a 24-year-old in a job, and like you say, in a very public way. So that all informed, and then there must have been a moment of like, this is where the book is. This is what the book is. And what does that feel? What does that feel like?
I mean, I think it's usually that thing when also you kind of get to a level of vulnerability in a relationship. It feels tender and safe, and also incredibly unsafe at the same time, so it's like when you finally kind of access that, whatever that deeper level is, you do feel a click, right? You're like, oh, this feels, so it's like all those scenes in the sci-fi thing where they put one thing in place and then the spaceship lights up. It's like, we did it. It's working now.
Well, the circuits are connected or something.
Exactly, and that's what it felt like, but also it was like, there's this concept of also terrifying freedom, which is like, I think a lot of what we do is we kind of find ballast in our lives so we can have that grounding and that safety of grounding. And I think a lot of times when you have something like this that feels like you're kind of lifting off of the ground, there's something moderately terrifying about that, especially when you're going to be accessing, authentic, real things for, public consumption. But it never, it never felt wrong. And I think that's what, whereas the other version of this book, which was, Dead Bodies and Cloak and Dagger and stuff like that, always felt forced and pushed and trying to be something. And every writer knows that feeling of like you're chasing forced. Something that feels, kind of put upon and overdone. So this felt real and raw. And more often the case, it's the same thing with food. It's the same thing with everything. Simple ingredients done well. It's like that's what this
nothing
is.
Like
it's just a good, exactly. It's just a good bowl of pasta.
You picked one of my favorites. There is nothing like that, and it doesn't have to be fussy and that sense of things being contrived and forced and not authentic. I know those are themes that I keep coming back to with the events that I host and the authors I speak to and the books that I want to spend my time with. And I have had more arguments with people that won't put a book down because they have this like odd sense of like having connected or engaged and they need to continue. And I'm like, how much is your time worth? Anyway,
how much is your time worth?
I'm derailed. Yeah, I really just get furious about it. Like, do you not value your time?
Yeah. You don't like it. It's actually, you don't have to like that book. It's okay.
No,
it's
you
okay.
don't. You don't.
No.
You do are going to like that bowl of pasta, but you do not have to like that.
Right? Yeah.
You just do not. I know. I've really, I actually told somebody that I actually counsel. I said, I sometimes do counsel people about how to put down a book. Like, and they, I was like, let's go for it. Let's understand why that is. But the element of being engaged and just really soaking up whatever it is you're doing, because you are allowed to do that. I guess it's all back to old messages and what we tell ourselves. And I'm chatting with Liza Palmer. We're talking about her brand new book, The Nobodies, and you can visit LizaPalmer.com, and you can go to my Facebook page, Reading with Robin, where we will have copies to give away, which is always fun. We make it like a little game about how they can win, and which sort of goes into, so Bloom is the company that Joan works at, and they have all sorts of fun. See, I don't know this world at all, startup. It sounds like so much fun to me, like all these games and all of this camaraderie. But talk about when Joan goes in and her sort of her cast of characters and what she, her initial experience at Bloom. Maybe people start.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing that we talked about, which is like if you're starting to be open to new things, then you start to kind of open your eyes to being open to different kinds of people in your lives that you didn't think that you would feel connected to. And I think that's where that crew comes from. When she goes in, first of all, she has to kind of learn how to work the coffee machine, which takes, which
I
for
was
me
so
as well.
frustrated for her because, like, you need that coffee. And I've been in that situation. Yeah, at an airport, I was, like, looking at a lounge, and I don't know, there was all this stuff that was possible, and I just wanted friggin' coffee.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I stood behind somebody, like, watching this procedure, touch, button thing, and I was like, yeah, and, traveling isn't the best way to learn any of that stuff. But anyway,
exactly.
That's the place. So Joan has to, like, start to figure that out right there.
Right, and that's where she actually meets her manager, a 24-year-old named Thornton Yu, who, has his own story. And then he goes up and meets the team, which is another woman named Hani Kadra, who is this kind of just shiny penny, bouncy, pure light kind of kid who – I think, and there's a lot of that there. I think that the thing about being around people who are in a younger generation than me is there's hope, there's curiosity,
there is hope,
fight, there's this
energy
want for something. Yes, there's all this stuff, and I think for so long that I worked there, I think that I didn't think I had anything in common with the younger generation, because there are markers where you're like, I don't understand the pop culture references you're making. I don't understand,
so sad.
I don't understand the music that you're listening to. Of course, as you get to know people, then they start sending you links to great songs, and you're like, oh, this is a great song.
Yeah, I love this.
You start expanding your horizons to kind of be open to that stuff. And so I think as I built into the book kind of how my own journey was as kind of dipping a toe into, and also making friends is hard. And it's vulnerable, and it's
a reminder.
13 years old again, and that's another thing that's like, I don't want to do this again. Like, I feel like I'm 13. I have a birthday party, and I've invited everybody from the class, and not everybody. It's all that stuff. It's the same thing where you're like, it's hard not to do the thing that you're good at in the way in which you're good at it, even if it's not serving you. Because I think we have so many friends. I mean, because that's what Conversations with the Fat Girl is about two friends who've known each other and who are best friends, but it's like company china. Like, you don't eat off of it. You bring it out once a year, trot it out as this old kind of relic, and it's not something. And I think we do that so often, especially women. We do that. We hold on to these female friendships for way too long because making friends is hard, and it's vulnerable, and you have to, not know. You have to be at a weird bar and be like, oh my, what am I doing here? It's like because you're here because you're connecting with this other person who also, by the way, you'll find out in 3 months, didn't want to be there either.
Right.
And
there's that. There's always that piece of it.
Exactly. Open to that stuff and expanding your horizons and all that stuff, but that level of vulnerability is so hard.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then there's that getting past it or, upon reflection thinking, what did that serve, or that was a good thing, but at the moment, it's all those feelings. And your 13-year self, the 13-year-old self is way closer to the surface than we like to think about. And
it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh, why did I say that? And I get it. It's like, but it's not worth. Like, I think what I thought for so long was that there was like a stability or a safety in living a life that never had me waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, oh, why did I say that?
Interesting.
But actually, that risk has to happen because otherwise you're living a life where you're never risking or you're never doing anything that's outside of your comfort zone, which even if I'm sure all your listeners are fantastic readers. It's like, think about that book. Would you want to read about somebody who never stepped out of their comfort zone? It's like you're not even the hero of your own life when you're doing that.
Exactly. There's no arc. There's just nothing.
There's no arc. You're just safely going along because you don't want to be uncomfortable. And I always think about it, it's like, it's not that uncomfortable is bad. It just feels bad in the moment. So it gets labeled bad, right? And I think all it was uncomfortable for years, even now. And I've been there almost 5 years I've been there.
And it's still
in 2020. There's still moments where I'm like, oh, God, why did I say that? It's like the same. It's the same thing. I said something.
I'm sure they think it's endearing at this point, Liza.
I certainly hope so.
I'm sure. What did you say? Do you remember? Do you want to share it?
I cannot. I think it was.
I'll tell you it's okay.
I think it was something as stupid as I started talking and somebody else started talking, and then I didn't know whether or not to keep talking or to stop. It was one of those where you were like, is this our, and it's just so, in tech and startup, you're in these kind of like, all these conference rooms are glass, right? So everybody can see absolutely everything. And it's like, so it's glass conference rooms. So your humiliation is basically like, you're in a goldfish bowl of humiliation all the time. Anyway.
It sounds charming. It makes me feel like wanting to get like a job somewhere and like learn something. I've actually thought about, before that movie, The Intern with De Niro came out, I was thinking it would be so much fun to like have no, I guess it's only fun if you have risk there, but just to learn something or sort of set yourself. Although when I started on the radio, I had no clue about any of that. I didn't know anything. So I guess I went through that uncomfortable thing. I was
almost
I think it's 40.
Especially in this day and age, I think our lives are so curated. Like even our television is streamed. We choose what it is. Our music is streamed. Like we make playlists on Spotify. We're not happening upon anything. There's nothing uncurated about our lives. They're getting more and more made for us.
Well, it's the same thing. Right. You're right. If you like this book, now I'm going to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning saying I stepped over. I'm talking. If you like this book, you're going to like that book. You might like this book. I never thought about it in quite that way. Here's a podcast you enjoy, so you will enjoy this one.
Exactly. And you never have to step out of your comfort zone. And I think we do that with people. And I think it's because I had to go into this place every day because, financially, I needed a day job. I needed to put food on the table. And I've had jobs since I was 13 or 16 or whatever it was, working at, I worked at In-N-Out Burger.
Okay, go ahead.
You go and you put food on the table and you do what you got to do. But it's like, because I had to be here instead of writing novels, I had to be sitting next to a kid every day making, saying hi and doing all this kind of stuff and being at a job that I was bad at and all that kind of stuff for a long time. And something about that, I couldn't opt out. I had to have, my life had to be uncurated. And I think that's more what it was. Like I had to listen to music that I'd never heard. I had to understand about pop culture references because they were saying them in meetings. And I was like, I have to understand what you're talking about.
Right, so you can't just laugh along because then it's like math. It builds on it, and they're like, well, she saw that, so she would know
you're
this.
Like, what's a Visco girl? Like, how do I not know what a Visco girl is? And so it's like I'm sitting here trying to figure out all this kind of, but in the meantime, I'm being rebooted. Like my whole little world is expanding and coming into color and all that kind of stuff. I mean, uncomfortably in. Like, this isn't a great, like, it's not a great feeling. Like, you feel like you're kind of catching up the whole time, but it fills you up in a really meaningful way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's comfortable, which I think is what people want it to be.
Where we got is stepping outside of that, and I think I can only and I can only imagine what you add to that. Like, what were the things that you shared with the youngins where they were like, "Yeah, I heard about that thing called whatever," or
reality bites. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because I wonder, there's always, it's a give and take with sharing of the culture or references or, even things that I know I will reference. You being around your peers, they get those references, but sometimes it's just kind of funny. And we also all have, no matter what the age, people have different interests. So there could be somebody that I would have no clue and get the reference.
Right.
Within our peer group, but I'm big on pop culture reference, so I would probably have a really hard time being like so distant from the younger ones. Because I'm the one who knows those in my own sphere. But I would probably be very sad.
Right?
Talk about uncomfortable, or I would be Googling everything and trying to catch up.
Yeah, nodding along, and then you're like, okay, let me go check that later. Yeah,
so what's the favorite thing? What's the favorite thing you latched onto that you picked up at BuzzFeed, or like a new favorite? I don't know, either a song, a band, or movie, or a series, or something that everybody's into that you were like, oh, I'm so glad I know this now.
I mean, literally, it was as simple as. I mean, I actually started with a friend earlier, but I was even like. What's Spotify? Like, I wasn't even on Spotify at that point.
Right, well,
it wasn't even.
I got that.
Like, because also you get into these things where you're like, I'm too old to learn that. Let me just be on iTunes. Like, it's not. You kind of opt out, and there's a version of yourself where it's like, I don't even know where to start with that. Like, and so you don't. And even though, I mean, Spotify has given me so much music and so much new music and everything. And I just wasn't going to do it because for maybe a week it would have been uncomfortable. Like, that's why I wasn't going to do it.
When Spotify is uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable when something happens to your phone and you don't remember the login and it's part of a family login, and then you change it, and then everyone in your family is irritated because no one can get into their Spotify family plan. That's when Spotify is difficult.
I swear to God, if my life depended on what all my passwords were, I'd be like, I can't. I don't know. Like, why was I clever? What? I don't know what this answer is of what my favorite restaurant was in 1992.
Oh, I hate that, especially when you're on the phone with like somebody who's trying to help you, and they're like, "Well, what do you think your password is?" I'm like, "Ask me another identifying question before
I don't know exactly."
I scream at you. And I'm talking to Liza Palmer. We're all over the place with our comment. I know I could sit and have coffee with you like all day. And we're talking about the Nobodies, which is brand new. It is fresh, exciting, and necessary, and a must read. That's what Taylor Jenkins Reid said, and everybody read Daisy Joan and the Six, so Taylor knows what she's talking about also. And it's just, I mean, like all of your books, it's just so full of heart and hilarity and smart fun. Those are my favorite things to say about a book, and those are the things that I love so much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You mentioned In-N-Out Burger, and there's a scene with Joan and Billy with the fries, and there's just, fries are fraud. And the fries in the box, talk about that. I just loved that scene. I was just cracking up. And then Joan goes with her niece, and I'm thinking, your fries are going to get cold. Like, I actually was like, she put her meal down. All right, we're not going to give spoilers away, but I just loved that. So speak to the fries.
I knew I wanted to give her a really rich family life, which I count on my family. I have a really hardcore family. We're very tight. And I think I knew I wanted her to give this very earthy, welcoming kind of family, but also a family that she a little bit felt separate from. I mean, they work at a gardening center. They work the land, and she lives back with her parents and her big brother, Billy. And I think Billy is going to take the family business. He's married. He's got a kid. They're all that. And so I really wanted you to know that she had a person that she could totally be herself with. Because I think once you see that baseline of what a character is like when they feel completely unconditionally loved, then you can see the tragedy of them not having that anywhere else. So I really wanted to establish her and Billy as this team of siblings that just could, it's that sibling talk where you look at each other and you're like, don't you say it, So after her first day at work,
sibling talk is the best.
I love it. I've got an older sister, and we just have that shorthand. After her first day of work, they go through In-N-Out. I worked at In-N-Out at the end of high school and at the beginning of right after high school, and so it's a great gig. I mean, it's a great job. I think I would have stayed there, actually. It's got great benefits. It
seems like a really good company.
Yeah. And so I knew that In-N-Out is also such a LA staple that I was like, you got to put In-N-Out in there. And so when they're in line, she starts, and they get their food, she starts kind of digging at the box fries, which is, it's off limits. And every sibling parent knows that it's off limits. It's like, those are box fries. Like, you can't, and it's such a sibling fight. It's like, it's so perfect because they've been fighting about the box fries their entire life.
Well, because you have to be clever about it, and
exactly.
it's a stealth move, and it's
exactly. But it's off limits. It's an immediate fight starter, and so I just needed to establish how loving they were and how much they knew each other. And so I think a fight about box fries is immediately going to be identifying as these two siblings just absolutely get each other and know each other and love each other. I love those two.
I did too. I loved everything about that, the whole thing, and that connection, and just it oozed off the page. And I love the way you described that, seeing Joan with somebody that she could be herself with shows the other side of not fitting in and feeling like she was fitting in, and it's just such a win of a book, and it's the Nobodies.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, and visit LizaPalmer.com. You can find her on Twitter and on Instagram. And Joan winds up with this job because she was a journalist. I mean, so talk, before I let you go, a little bit about a journalist background and the sadness of newspapers folding, and once a journalist, always a journalist. Again, without giving anything away, and how she manages that within her new job at Bloom.
Yeah, I think because I was dealing with my own grieving process with writing, right, where it's like, I think there's that, and she says in there, which is, I lost the opportunity to do this, but not the need to do it. And I think it's like, it's that thing where you have a calling and you're not allowed to do it, or you're not allowed to do it in the way in which you think you should be able to do it or something. I wanted to give her a calling and a job where it was more than just a job. It was she put all of her eggs in one basket, and it was that I am a journalist and that this is what I do. Also, I think for somebody, and this is what Joan and I share, if you're somebody who doesn't really feel like you fit in places, to fit in with your job wholly and 100%, to feel that click, to get that zen, to really be in the zone with something, and then to be denied that opportunity feels like you are just at sea. Like you just don't have a place where you can totally feel yourself or be yourself or show, because what she talks about was that she showed journalism all of herself. There wasn't a part of herself that journalism didn't see. And writing is the same for me, where it was like, it's seen me good, the bad, and the ugly, and it still loved me and it still accepted me. And I think I really wanted to infuse that in Joan, where it's like, I don't know who I am without this. I don't know who I am if I don't get to be a journalist, because all of this energy and all of this, it's that great scene in So Something's Got to Give, where Diane Keaton says, what am I going to do with all this?
What am I going to do with all this?
What am I going to do with all this?
See, I get your reference. I get your reference.
Exactly.
I love that movie.
And I think that's a lot of it. It's like, what am I going to do with all this? Where am I going to push? Where am I going to put all this energy? And then what it does is it goes inward, right? All that energy then goes inward, and it's a black hole. You start sucking in on yourself because if you don't have something to throw all that energy at, that's what I think when you start. It backs up. Exactly right.
Creatively constipated or something.
Oh, my God. But then it starts coming out in other ways, and it comes out in your health, and it comes out in all this kind of stuff, because it doesn't go away. It
can't go nowhere.
Down, and
right.
Then, no, exactly.
And that's true. Like, where's the outlet? It can't. It just can't. What am I going to
Exactly.
What a great reference. Now I want to watch Something's Got to Give.
Well, the house alone. I mean, Nancy Meyers. I swear.
I know.
I can't.
Yes, I know. You
it's
can't
painful.
even with Nancy Meyers. Did she ever do a movie, As I Digress? That's my new podcast. It's going to be called I Digress. Did she ever do a movie with Nora Ephron? I don't know.
No, she didn't. That's a dream team right there.
Well, sadly, maybe Delia will pick it up. I know.
Nora Ephron is my North Star.
Yes, I bow. Yeah. I bow to that altar and reference her all the time. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking one day, like, how did they never work together?
I know. That's
okay,
true.
I thought they hadn't.
No, I don't think so, because I think, Nancy Meyers did Private Benjamin, right? That was one of her first ones. And then she did Baby Boom, which makes everybody go get those Jeep Wagoneers and go buy yellow houses in Vermont.
Before I do let you go.
That's actually a great idea. Yeah.
Right? I know that, or it's going to be the title of my memoir, yet to be written memoir. I Digress, another blah, blah, blah. So what have you read this summer that you've loved? What would you like to suggest to the audience?
Oh, I've also, one of the great things that I've gotten into at BuzzFeed is also, I'm now kind of an annoying foodie. So
those are the best kind.
I know. I love it. We went to, we took a trip with friends from BuzzFeed. We went to Copenhagen and went to Noma, which is Renee Redzepi's restaurant. So I've been reading a lot of Anthony Bourdain. So I read I'm reading Kitchen Confidential, and I finished Medium Raw. But I also, they're incredible. He's incredible. He was incredible. Yeah. And then I read Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, which I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm. It was a huge hit.
It's so good. And then I love, I'm also obsessed with Samin Nosrat, who does Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Her cookbook.
Yes, the cookbook's gorgeous.
A thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. I mean, I read it. It's her stories and how she talks about food and how she breaks down the simplicity of food is beautiful.
That is a gorgeous cookbook, and the stories in the cookbook are the best. I love
it. And I want to frame parts of it. Like there's these whole kind of like beautiful photograph, like these drawings in there where you just want to. It's just gorgeous.
Oh my goodness!
Those are the ones I've read in the last. And I went on this whole tangent of reading there's a sci-fi series called Red Rising, which I read the first trilogy of, which I ate alive. I just loved it. So yeah,
Do you read Ruth Reichl? Did you read?
I love Ruth Reichl. I love it.
I figured.
I love her. She was actually one of the first ones that I started with. Her writing is, you can literally taste her writing through the page.
Yeah.
It's so warm.
Off the page. Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
This has just been the most fun. I love chatting with you, and I hope to get to meet you in person one of these days.
I would love that.
That would just like complete the loop. And if you're up at 4:00 in the morning, send me a tweet, and I will probably be back. I probably get back to you in just a moment because I'll be up as well. So, I wish you all the best with the Nobodies,
thank you.
Keep in touch. Liza Palmer, this was just such a treat. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.